Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, sir. We'll just wait for 2 more minutes because this will also be live streamed to YouTube. We're starting at 11. Good morning, Ravinder. A very good morning to everyone who has joined us this morning. Uh, Kicking off the webinar on Nutri-Smart farming for sustainable agriculture, which is featuring distinguished panelists today. Just to give everyone a bit of a context, there's a growing need for innovative and nutrition smart farming techniques that align with sustainable agriculture goals. Also, there's a dire requirement to address the challenge of hidden hunger and declining nutrient content in crops grown in India. So, the discussion today will focus on policy frameworks, technological advancements, and corporate and NGO driven initiatives which are aimed to transforming India's agriculture landscape. The discussion will also center around how nutrition smart farming practices can be integrated into India's agriculture systems to promote long term sustainability. So, the need to bridge this gap between government initiatives, the private sector innovations, and grassroots rural developments will be a key focus for us today. We would also talk about promoting collaboration amongst various stakeholders. So with this, I would like to welcome our guest of honor, Shri Samuel Praveen, who's the Joint Secretary, Ministry of Agriculture and Farmer Welfare, Government of India. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Vaishali. Thank you so much. And good morning to everyone who has joined online for this webinar. I can see few familiar faces, Ravinder and others. I'm not keeping well, so my volume will be slightly less than what actually it does generally. But I hope still it will be sufficient enough to convey across what I want to. So this, this Nutri-Smart farming for sustainable agriculture. To speak on that, today I've been asked to give a keynote address. Very specifically, I will touch upon few of the issues that probably, as all the stakeholders must be concerned about. In agriculture, we have several themes which are all cross-cutting, all pervasive. We can say, nutrition is one such thing. You have climate adaptation. It will actually fit into all the segments of agriculture. Then, when you talk about gender, again, gender, not necessarily inclusive business can be gender. farm labor can be gender oriented. So you'll have some issues which are cross cutting, and therefore it will not just be confined to say value chain or just for pre-farm activities. Across the entire spectrum of activities that we have in agriculture, nutrition also applies. So that is one important thing that probably we'll all know already, but we'll have to therefore understand and appreciate that where all we can find our foot, and in sense where do we actually contribute, because contribution at each and every level will translate into that performance that will ensure sustainability. So these are all integral to sustainability of agriculture. Now the question is basically, when we have webinars like this, it's all about finding answers to questions. The question here is, how do you ensure sustainability, whether short term or long term? How do you do that? And Nutri-Smart farming is something that a need that everybody has felt. Now, I would like to start by referring to Bharat Ratna Dr. M.S. Swaminathan, who once mentioned, when while speaking in a United Nations conference, he was telling that we talk about food production and food security, but when we talk about food security, we only talk about a handful of grains, which are rice, wheat, maize, and pulses. Beyond that, we do not look at. Now, that is one of the prime reasons, because these are our staples. You go to US and all, maize is a staple there. You come to South Asian countries, you will have rice as the staple. The northern part of India, Punjab, Pakistan, and other places, wheat is a staple. So different parts of the world have different staple foods, and we focus on fulfilling the food security needs, but we seldom focus on fulfilling the nutrient requirement, nutrient security. We can't call it a nutrition security, but providing wholesome, nutritious food. And the reason is that there are many great neglected and underused crops. The focus is not on neglected, underused crops. Thankfully, during 2023, we had the International Year of Millets. So the focus was brought on millets. Otherwise, millets was a forgotten crop. That is why the word neglected and forgotten and underused crops was mentioned by Dr. Swaminathan. So it has come to limelight, but again, sadly, it has been in limelight for only 1 year. Beyond that, we have also forgotten having events oriented with millets, though we are doing some projects here and there. But a holistic approach has not kicked in. Similarly, you see, again, millets cannot serve the entire world population. Many of them don't eat millets at all. Largely, it is confined to South Asia and Africa. You have quinoa in Latin America. Then there is something called teff in Ethiopia, which he has mentioned in his address. And a huge number of forgotten fruits, vegetables, tuber crops, tapioca, cassava, sweet potato. All these are actually highly nutritious and being eaten in some part of the country. Sweet potato, go to Kerala, a lot of consumption is there. It is highly nutritious, and it builds immunity also. So hugely important for not only survival of these crops. These are for the survival of poor people also. We need these crops. It's like survival of the crop also, survival of the people as well. But the focus is that we don't research on these crops. We don't develop systems on these crops. We have not been promoting farming systems, technology for increasing the yields. Millet yields are drastically very poor, compared to other crops. We haven't applied latest technology for improving millet crops. Value chains are not developed. So there are so many areas on which we are supposed to work, and therefore we feel that if we can focus on these under researched crops, crops which are underused, underknown, or which are neglected, these crops can also help in building the nutrition security. And therefore nutrition smart farming should not be confined to just climate smart agriculture, but we should be focusing on climate smart crops. There are some crops like jawar, bajra, and all, they consume less amount of water, so they can help us to adapt to climate better. And also they need they can tolerate in adverse conditions. Most of them are rain fed, even whether rain is there or not, somehow they survive with whatever amount of rainfall that they get, and they give yields. But whether that is sufficient in terms of income supplementation for a farmer, the problem is no. Certainly the answer is because they don't get that kind of an income from a jawar crop, and therefore it is a question of their livelihood. So why should farmer go for a jawar crop or a bajra crop, unless otherwise he's in dire necessity to go for it and there is no other option? It's a last vikalp, they will say. So okay, let us grow this, it will come on its own and do it. So but for us, actually, we should shift our focus to eating what we grow, to grow what we want to eat. So today we are eating rice, wheat, and all those things because it's grown and it's available in plenty. Now let us orient our thought process towards producing those crops which we want to eat for a healthier future for our citizens. So that is the idea. Now, since I have been given only 15 minutes time slot, so I've got a lot of things to share, but I thought I will paraphrase in such a manner that I'm appropriately finishing it in 15 minutes with 1 or 2 minutes for some question if somebody wants to answer. So that I will finish it in 12, 13 minutes, my thoughts, and then probably the participants, online participants, if they want to know something, they can question. I'll be focusing on three issues which are going to be the pillars for Nutri-Smart farming in our country. This I have categorized as three P's, that is people and partners, number two, policies, and number three, platforms. Now, I'll elaborately tell you about the importance of each and every entity in this whole ecosystem. When I talk about people partners, yes, this initiative, to have a, Nutri-Smart farming webinar with, media partner, knowledge partners, and all of them coming together and discussing on this vital issue is one kind of a collaboration where, people come to know about the issues and then also connect their research, their work with the strategies that government is pursuing, with the strategies that we will be requiring. You must have also heard about the public private partnership, many a times. So what happens is that sometimes there are conflicting interests. A commercial organization coming in and asking money from the government, again, what happens is they'll say, why only this company? Then we go for a tender, RFP, and all those things. But technology is agnostic to all this. If you have a good technology, somebody has found out, we have to promote that. So we have come up with this new PPAVCD, that is Public-Private Partnership Agri Value Chain Development. This is a scheme that was launched in May 24, where we are saying that any private entity wants to work in a particular state because agriculture is a state subject. So if they want to work for promoting a good seed, promoting a good farming practice, good technology, good innovative practice, that will either substantially increase the yields or substantially improve the nutritional content of the crop so that the people consuming that will be feeling much healthier, fitter. So that kind of a demonstrable, takeaways or outcomes are there. Then they can tie up with the states, and what we can do is identify a catchment area, like a cluster, where you can grow this variety in huge numbers, and the government can support the farmers directly through DBT. So here, the expenditure that will have to be incurred by the farmers for adopting this technology, government will support. And the partner, I mean the private partner who is going to collaborate with government, can actually pursue in the sense that this scheme can have these kind of a deliverables, and over a period of time you can demonstrate that initially maybe one or two projects, and then if it is scalable, then probably take it up to other parts which are enjoying similar type of agroclimatic zone or suitable crop where you can grow in other states. Maybe groundnut crop can be grown not only in Gujarat, it can be done in Anantapur in Andhra Pradesh, it can be done in Srivilliputtur in Tamil Nadu. So you can identify those pockets and develop the clusters. What happens is that here, this is a collaborative effort wherein the private is joining hands without any allegations that, yes, they are benefiting from. They are promoting. Here, you will have to have only one thing in mind, that your technology adoption will benefit the larger farming segment. The farmers will get benefited. And, suppose the yields today are 800 kgs and you are able to demonstrate a 1200 kg yield, that will substantially increase the income of the farmers because it is like, additional income. It is like marginal income. Anyway, your costs are covered in 800 rupees. So whatever you are getting additional will be directly translated into income for farmers. Similarly, any technology that can kind of, boost the, crop kind of nutrition, and in the market, you are able to fetch a better price. Instead of fetching 30 rupees, you fetch 40 or 50 rupees because of that nutritional value. That again adds to direct income for the farmers. So these ways, the private sectors will have to innovate and look for models by which you will be able to support the farming community with the help of government. We'll have to develop templates for this. This attempt of PPAVCD is an attempt, and we have received about a dozen odd proposals, and states have been asking for additional funds, and we are also making provision for that so that we are able to promote innovative practices to the help of private sector participation. So this is one example of this. Certainly, there are a lot of examples that I can share on how, for a larger objective, all of us can come together collectively and do it. FPOs is one example where private sector can work closely with FPOs. They can form FPOs, and all the benefits that are actually available from government sector for FPOs, especially for value chain development, I think that will be again another path-breaking thing. So that can also be explored. Next is the policies. When I talk about this pillar, policy pillar, Again, you have so many policies, water, Jal Shakti Ministry having some policy, agriculture having some policy, ICAR having some policy, state governments having some policy. So that policy architecture must be such that it intertwines seamlessly, and there is no overlapping, and there is a well-defined policy framework. Something somebody is doing already, we should not replicate that. So that kind of a policy framework we have to work on, and that's something based on. I don't see in the webinars generally people discussing on policy frameworks, because they feel it is the domain of ministry and department, let them do it. But the suggestions on what kind of changes in the policy can actually benefit the ecosystem are always welcome, and therefore we should look at ways and means of integrating that. I will give an example. For example, this long-range weather forecast. We did a study in Telangana and Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Rajasthan, and Uttar Pradesh, where this, 5 states, we found that if you are able to inform about the onset of monsoon and also the total rainfall forecast during a given season, well in advance, say about 15-20 days, the farmers are able to better plan their farming activities, and therefore are able to realize cost reduction in terms of less input usage and better planning of crops, better yields, better productivity. So this is an example. We have been working with the Development Innovation Lab, which is led by none other than the famous, Nobel laureate Michael Kramer. He's helping us from University of Chicago. We have got a pilot this year, and next year we are going to upscale it to more states. So it's a very simple thing. It's a simple, innovative thing. Farmers को आप पहले ही बोल रहे हो कि भाई बारिश इस डेट होगा. 15 दिन पहले बोलने से he will be in a better position to plan his activities. Otherwise, just one day before बारिश वो कहाँ से बाल्टी ढूंढेगा, बीज ढूंढेगा, क्या करेगा? What plan he has got? So these kind of small, innovative things. No need to have some rocket science here. Farming is a very, of course, farming is a science. It's an art and science, but we'll have to club together all these things, small, innovatives. Lastly, I'll finish up. I think I have 1 or 2 minutes more, so I'll finish up. So lastly, I'm in a conference. I'll call you. So what happens is that lastly we have the platforms. When I say platforms, it is not necessarily the digital platform.
फोन करेगा तो आएगा मस्ती प्राइवेट लिमिटेड.
You can mute that gentleman.
Can I please ask everybody to keep your... Can you please mute yourself, Mr. Manoj? Can you please mute yourself? Yes, sir.
हाँ ठीक है. तो मैं ये कह रहा था कि सीताराम को तो मैं जानता हूँ, ठीक है, तो उसके नाम नंबर तो मैं देने की जरूरत नहीं.
सीताराम को सब लोग जानने लगे.
अरविंद के नंबर भेजूंगा, तुम वो है उसको कर लेना.
सीताराम. मनोज अग्रवाल जी, थोड़ा सा कृपा दृष्टि दिखाइए 5 मिनट के लिए, सब्र रखिए 5 मिनट. Okay, so I'm talking about the platforms when we say the operational structures and also the digital systems that we have to develop. Now, this is a huge topic, you can keep on discussing for the entire day, but I'll just sum up. The initiatives that we are building today are in isolation or in standalone mode. Somebody providing some information about weather, somebody providing some information about pest surveillance, somebody providing about seed. But farmer needs a holistic thing. So that is why we should focus on DPIs, and we should be able to build a digital public infrastructure which will make our life much easier. Just imagine Aadhaar as an innovation was only initially, conceived for an identity, so that it will be an identity for Ravinder Grover and for Samuel Praveen Kumar. But today, what Aadhaar can do will also enable you payment linked to your account, identify it. Also, it will provide you an entry to an airport seamlessly without waiting in long queues in the form of DigiYatra. Now, other day I found out the problem. I was traveling in an airport, Chennai airport, and the person standing in front of me was entering DigiYatra, and suddenly something fell and he bent down, and my photo was captured. So he entered through my identity, and then I was stuck up. He says it's a duplicate entry. So I had to literally struggle saying that fellow bent down in front of me. So these are all the issues that we face in digital. I'm just on a lighter vein, I'm just telling, but it will make our lives much, much easier if we are able to build a network grid model of digital initiatives. And Vistar is one such model that we are building for fulfilling the needs of information, for advisories, for access to credit, access to markets, and lot of whole set of advisories, information can all flow. So you should have a network. States can plug into this network. The central network partners who are providing across the country the information like ICR. You can have Fasal Bima Yojana. You can have IMD data coming in. You can have NABARD flowing in with the FPO information and all those things seamlessly. What it does is, instead of one person saying that it is going to rain today, another person saying that if it rains, you will have this pest. Then third person saying that if rain comes, your yield will reduce by this much. And the fourth person saying that if your yield reduces this much, the overall supply will impact price by this much. So four different systems giving you four different advices, and the farmer has to make a sense of these four. Instead of that, if all these are combined and then it says, since it is going to rain, these are all the consequences of that rain. So beware of this and plan accordingly. So it will make life of the farmer much easier. So I'll end here. I'll say pillars of this entire strategy for us would be public-private, that is people partners, the policies of the government, and also the ecosystem, and then the platforms, that is largely the digital systems that we are all evolving. So if these three can be strengthened, I am sure Nutri-Smart farming can be a viable option for making our agriculture sustainable. I leave it here because of the paucity of time. I think I overshot by 1 or 2 minutes, but I am ready to take some questions if at all they are ready. Over to you, Vaishali.
Yeah, thank you so much, Samuel. This was really very good. A few of the things which we would take up, and maybe we'll also get back to you with some more suggestions is on climate smart crops. You talked about PPP, AVCD. Maybe that's also something which we'd like to explore a bit more. And the digital public infrastructure, how we can work on converging various platforms and making it valuable for the farmers. So thank you so much. This was actually very enlightening and a great keynote, and has set a tone for this webinar. With this, I would like to briefly introduce all the expert panel for today. We have Dr. Binod Anand. He's Executive President, World Cooperation Economic Forum, and Member and Secretary General of Confederation of NGOs of Rural India. We have Mr. Jairam. He's National Mission Manager for National Rural Livelihood Missions. We have Mr. Sanjeev Kanwar. He's Managing Director, Yara South Asia, a crop nutrition company. Mr. Ravinder Grover, he's Global Business Manager of Harvest Plus Solutions. Dr. Agatha Betse, she's Nutrition Manager for Marico India. It's an Indian multinational consumer goods company. And Mr. Kuchibotla Srinivas, who's the Senior Director, Deloitte India. So with this, let me just start the discussion. And sir, not sure if you will be able to spare some more time with us and be with us for this webinar.
I to be here for another 10 minutes because I have a meeting at 11:30. So 10 minutes I'll be there, then I'll move on.
Okay, sure, sir. Thanks a lot for your time. So I quickly go to Mr. Binod Anand. We start with him because he's joining us from New York today, and it's already quite late for him in the day. So over to you, Binod. Let me just start with a question so that maybe you can elaborate a bit more. What, according to you, are the key challenges and opportunities in creating a global framework, say for a sustainable agriculture, and how can Nutri-Smart farming play a role in this?
Thank you so much, Vaishali, and many thanks to. Am I audible to all of you?
Yes, you're audible. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone, especially Samuel, to brief the whole house about how the government is functioning. Being a member of the High Power Committee of the Prime Minister in support price and agricultural reform, my task has become a little easier. I think what the Nutri-Farm and the organization can take it up, the way you have taken this thing first is we need to create a convergence of all the policy framework, which can be the farmer-centric and administratively implementable. Because there are too many policies are at place, but in fact, they are not farmer-centric. The whole value chain, the farmer is being lost. He doesn't have the, the booty of that. For example, if suppose the government gives, or else anyone, even for take any sector, the ultimate thing what the farmers get is when it goes to the market. No, and then there are a lot of challenges also involved in that, which we are trying to address those bit by bit. And we have seen in the last few years how the things have changed, especially when it comes to the marketing side of the produce. Coming back to your first question, the global economic framework. See, this is an era of cooperation. today in the United Nations also I have spoken a bit about World Population Economic Forum. And it is the whole global architecture is changing. We are walking towards a sustainability, and a big challenge is there that only 5 years are left and only 17% of SDG, 17% of SDGs are being implemented. So it's a global challenge. India is no more remained in just in a corner, right? We are a global organization now. We are a global country. We are a globally well placed where 2.5 lakh crore of now the fertilizer subsidy we are giving, and all the money which is coming through the Consolidated Fund of India is a huge one when it comes to the farmers and farming initiative. But when it comes to what the farmers realizes, it's just meager. They are not getting the due. The money is going somewhere else. And that's a cause to worry. That's highly unsustainable. That's the first question where we all need to deliberate and we need to work upon. That's the first part. Second is sustainability is though a buzzword. It's not that kind of big challenge. The kind of the globe is talking about the climate change and the climate financing and SDG financing and all those things. It's a new era and new way of selling the green product, green energy. That is a bit okay either. But if it comes through always through the developed countries to the country like us, developing countries, again, the whole chain would be different. So we need to, our corporates, our private sector, our cooperative sector, the government, the youth, the startup, everybody has to stand up and create the kind of value chain where it will be India-centric. So suppose the drone we are making, the drone is an Indian thing, though we are assembling it, but in coming time, there might be things will be a little different. Similar in the value addition of the food produce. Third part, 170 countries in the world globally trade with the commodities. But in India, we have only a couple of commodity exchanges, right? The place where I'm sitting, New York, a bit, Chicago is not very far from here. It is the Chicago Board of Trade who governs what would be the carbon price, what would be the weather forecast. So how long this thing will continue? Why can't the country like us, where 14 crore farmers are there and too much of people are involved in the value chain, why can't we have 20 commodity exchanges or a different kind of commodity specific the commodity exchanges? It's a huge market where we need to tap it. It's not 1 rupee or 2 rupees, 10 millions of dollars being exchanged every week almost. So these are the three things where we need to think of on how the global economic framework would be changing. So it's an era of cooperation, right? Cooperation. If the 10 countries are sitting together and created SWIFT, where the trillions of dollars is being exchanged, why can't in the cooperative sector people can come together and help? And we are working on that. And we must be aware that how the Ministry of Cooperation is changing the rules, the way coming out from the shackles of Registrar Sahab, the kind of bureaucracy which is being dismantling, the kind of the IT framework which has been created. So these are few very agile and very good regulatory changes which is giving a good fillip to the cooperative sector, especially when it comes to the going beyond what the farmers is requiring. Fourth point is related to the organizational interventions. We need structural changes in plethora of organizations, especially the 12-13 ministry where the farmers are being involved. Why can't a cooperative bank will be given? Why they are not trying to compete with there is a fight going on between public sector bank and cooperative sector bank. All the DLRC, and when it comes to executing and implementing at the grassroots, at the state level, and even the district level bankers committee, there is a tough competition going on between them. Who will give the farmers the loan and how the KCC would be, these challenges are there. So the structural changes is required with the giants like NABARD. Structural changes is required the people organization like Indian Council of Agriculture Research. In fact, the institution like ICR do nothing for the farmers except just naming that they are doing research and extension. Our extension services are one of the worst in the world. So there we need a private sector involvement how to go on with them. So these are the five changes that I can suggest at this moment. I can go on and go on about it, but last and not the least, if the good collaboration will be between the private sector and the government sector, things will change in a different fashion. कहते हैं कि नियत तो होनी चाहिए तभी नीतियां बदलेगी, और नियत अभी बहुत अच्छी है सरकार के साथ में. पिछले 5-7 सालों से the kind of changes what we are perceiving in fact, and there are some global dance dramas which is going on the name of, say, so many other things. I will just bring your attention at one point where the sustainability and the natural resource management is a big solution. See, this is the first time that ethanol, the kind of bio revolution is there, where the compressed biogas that can be marketed. And this is the first time where the regulations have changed, when government has given the target that at least 5% of aviation turbine fuel will be mixed with this ethanol and CBG. So you can think of the kind of economy, rural economy, which is going to get generated. You think of what the Parali, the drama of Parali management is going on and on. And you can think about the waste management and all those things. So first time there are three big investment. One is the biofuel. Second is the warehouses, that all 2.5 lakhs of the panchayats will have packs attached with a very smart warehouse, blockchain integrated. So this investment had never ever been found in the early part of the history, even the developmental history. Though in the developed countries there were big silos, but we are in our country creating the chain of that warehouses which are going to make big changes in the way the commodities are being marketed and commodities are being traded either. You can think of when the 2.5 lakh packs will be integrated with some different cooperative commodity exchange. So there would be no filters, there will be no small big lot size. अभी क्या है कि एक बादाम का अगर आप किसान कश्मीर का है, श्रीनगर का है, तो उसको मिनिमम लॉट साइज उन्होंने 100 kg का रखा हुआ है. I really don't understand which farmers will produce 100 kg of badam, and then the NCDEX is lobbying that how can you ban the commodities. So we need a holistic change in the way even the private sector thinks. Private sector are not democratic nor farmer centric. So just 5 points I will say, that whatever the things we are doing, let us put 5 filters. One, it has to be the farmer centric. Second, it need to be administratively and professionally and management by the way of the management science, what the filter record and all says, implementable. That's the second part, where the last person, the small and marginal farmers will get it. So it should be farmer centric, it should be administratively implementable, it should be politically acceptable, it should be environmentally sustainable, and then it has to have economically viable. So with this 5 filter, we will check up the things. I think with the whole global economic framework, what we are perceiving, and the farmers who are not today exporting their commodities, they can able to tap the whole world. And that's how things will change the rural India, things will change in our country, and the best solution of the SDG, that 10, reducing inequality, will come through the cooperative economic framework. Thank you very much, all of you. And I will be here listening you, even though it is a little late, but I have taken a good 1 hour sleep. So I'm so excited to listen to you all and ready for the question and answers either. Thank you very much, Vaishali.
Thank you. Thanks, Vinod. This was really very, I think these are key pointers, these 5 points which you have given. So if you are able to stick to these, maybe we'll have policies which are more acceptable and implementable, and also something which is there in favor of farmers as well, which ultimately will be something contributing to the Nutri-Smart farming. So thanks for your pointers. With this, I would like to go to Sanjeev now. And Sanjeev, you representing a global plant nutrition company. How do you see the innovative fertilizers contributing to the shift towards sustainable farming? And also a question which is something which is related to this. how can new age solutions enhance nutrient use efficiency, which at the moment is declining? And how can we promote soil health, particularly in the context of these sustainable farming practices? Over to you.
Thank you, Vaishali. These are certain topics which are very close to my heart personally, not only professionally, but I think personally it's very important. I mean, if we look at Indian agriculture, maybe I'll just talk a little bit on agriculture per se in India. I mean, when we look at India's economy, we are expected to grow to about $10 trillion by 2035. So we are basically around 10 years away from now to be the third largest economy globally. And if Indian agriculture has to maintain its importance, which I hope it does, and for the next 10 years, it has to deliver 14% of India's GDP, continue to deliver that, which means that our contribution from Indian agriculture, the sector has to deliver around $1.5 trillion of economic growth to Indian economy. And this means that we would need to triple the contribution from Indian agriculture. Today, we are contributing around $480 to $500 billion. So that's the framework that which we need to look at. And then obviously this is not going to happen if a business as usual approach is maintained. Something different has to happen. We need to think out of the box and see how do we overcome the challenges that are confronting us in India. From our perspective, the way we look at it, India has typically got about three challenges before this Indian agriculture sector. One is poor soil health. When you look at the soil health map of India, you have huge deficiencies of zinc and boron, iron is coming up, and other micronutrients, because there has been continuous mining of nutrients from the soil, and the replenishment, especially for micro and secondary nutrients, has not been happening as it is needed. And that is having a limiting factor on your productivity, on the yield of a crop. So we might be spending $20 billion every year on fertilizer subsidies, but when you look at the nutrient use efficiency, in 1960, you were producing 12 kg of grain with 1 kg of NPK. Today is down to 5. So your nutrient use efficiency or your productivity, whatever you want to call it, is down by 60%, even though you're spending more in subsidizing ureas and DAPs and NPKs and MOPs. So that is, and it's also disrupting your soil. Second part is on water. We are definitely a water scarce country now. 54% of India does not have water. And I was reading a report which is pretty scary. I was hoping that that's incorrect, but unfortunately it's not. Bad news is always correct. I've realized that in my working experience. There's some parts of India which are drier than the Middle East. That should scare us. If we don't have water, how are you going to grow your crops? That is actually happening, and that is all the poor soil health, water scarcity. It is showing up in the yields. So you are actually our yields, especially on the cereal crops, are almost 40 to 50% lower than the global levels. You're spending more on subsidy. You're spending more on getting water out of the ground. You're spending more on soil, but the yields are not commensurate. So it's affecting our growth prospects in the coming years for our country. And worryingly is the issue of malnutrition that is coming up. One of my things that I do, it's become an instinctive thing for me to do when I travel in the markets, going out in the villages, meet the farmers, and also see some of the children there. I try to guess the age of the children, especially who are younger, let's say who are 10 to 12 years old, and I'm generally off by 3 to 4 years. So when I think a child is 10 years old, when I ask the age, he or she is maybe 13 or 14. And that's the element of malnutrition. When you look at the data, 3 out of every 5 stunted children apparently are Indians. That is scary because that is going to impact our the quality of a workforce 10 years from now, 15 years from now. So the demographic advantage that India has as of a young country, having the highest number of people, 65%, I think, below the age of 35. Are we really going to get it if our workforce is not healthy enough? Look at the health costs that will come. That's the second part. But if you're not healthy enough, how are you going to contribute? How are you going to be economically able to contribute to the growth of the Indian economy? So we do need to, as a country, we do need to look at sustainable solutions. We need to go back to basics, which is regenerative agriculture, which ideally should be based on 5 pillars. That is of climate neutrality, soil health, resource efficiency, that's nutrient use efficiency, biodiversity, and prosperity. So those are the elements that we need to really look at. So one area which we really need to look at is how do we improve nutrient use efficiency, which will also have an impact on improving your soil health and also reduce the water requirement, improve, let's say, maybe you resource efficiency to improve nutrient use efficiency, and also how effectively you use the water that is available to the soil. So there are technologies available in nutrition. For example, when you look at micronutrients, you have suspension concentrates which are coming in, which are there, and which have lower heavy metals, but they pack a more bigger punch. For example, you have a zinc oxide suspension concentrate, which can deliver 39.5% zinc to the crop instead of 12%, which you get from a zinc EDDA, and so on and so forth. And also, these innovative fertilizers are far more easily available. The uptake mechanism is faster. And if you can, as an organization or as a farmer, if you would apply these innovative fertilizers at the right crop stage, the uptake is much better than the traditional fertilizers. You need to, and you get a much better return to the farmers. And we have seen that when we do a lot of work in India and also globally supplying innovative fertilizers, which means that we have, for example, an NPK which can deliver 9 nutrients, NPK plus secondary and micronutrients, 4 or 5 micronutrients goes into the soil and helps the farmer improve his or her farm productivity by 15 to 20%. And look at the ease of application that comes in the sense that the farmer has to apply just one NPK with micronutrients and reduces the, instead of using an NP and K and then bringing in micronutrients, so on and so forth, and reduces his labor cost, reduces the chances of making an error in applying a product, and you get a better result. So that is where the innovative fertilizers will help in improving farm sustainability and ensuring that the farmers continue to grow nutritive products, which will have a positive impact on the food that all of us on this webinar are eating, and also for the future generations. Yeah. So that's where we feel there's a need for the government to look at some policy tweaks, which maybe I'll take up subsequently. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Sanjeev. So we have been talking about farmers being at the center of everything which we are discussing and which we want to also innovate and bring forth. With this, let me go to Mr. Raman Wadhwa, who is the Director, Deen Dayal Antyodaya Yojana, National Rural Livelihood Mission. So would be good, sir, to understand from you what are the projects under this, and what are the key challenges which farmers face in adopting Nutri-Smart farming practices, and how does NRLM address these knowledge gaps? Over to you, Mr. Raman. Mr. Raman?
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Now
Good afternoon. Can you
yes.
hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much. In as you have mentioned that in NRLM, our basic purpose is to not only provide livelihoods, but also we are looking at that how it can be more sustainable, or to a further extent, I would say that our SAG members are able to have a good living income, which obviously includes that it has to be Nutri-Smart one, and it has to be in other aspects also they are socially viable businesses. So with respect to these kind of practices, NRLM has taken an initiative reaching out our people, our SG members on various kind of climate smart practices for agriculture. And we, as of now, the first initiative, of course, have been with the Harvest Plus, not because they are here, to come up with the zinc fortified wheat, or we have the iron pearl millet. And of course, this way we have been able to reach out some 50,000 odd farmers. But now the idea is that how this can be enhanced to larger number of people, larger number of farmers. So we don't restrict ourselves that it should be in smaller area, maybe 1 or 2 states. We have thought that it should be expanded across over a larger area. And with this, we are saying that these farming practices should be taken to more number of farmers. So this year, after a lot of discussions, we came up that again in the same of government balance that we should have some 1 million farmers who can adopt such kind of practices. Nevertheless, that would require larger resources. One is the technical part, and another is that once these kind of products are available, how to market it. Because initially, when this process started of this fortification and tree hubs been created, so it is seen that it's say 100 or 200 metric tons of things is what this product is bought back. It is a big challenge because it cannot be expanded largely. So we want that it should be expanded. Further to it, technical agencies or expertise or personals are essentially required. And last but not the least is that it intends to be given, or those practices has to have to be with the SRLMs also, that is the State Rural Livelihoods Mission. Herein, I mean that it's not only the farmers who have to be trained or capacitated. Our challenge is how to reach out these practices to the persons who are actually leading the program at the district or at the in the state level, because that is also is an important part for us. So that's all I would like to say as of now, because I have some other assignment. So these are the two, three more most important points which I wanted to suggest. Thank you.
Vaishali, you're on mute.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
So thanks, Mr. Wadhwa, for sharing your thoughts. And we will definitely would like to know more about the projects. If it's okay with you, if you can stay back, we'll have some more questions for you. But just in case you're tied up in something, that's okay. So thanks again for joining this. With this, we go to Mr. Ravinder from Harvest Plus, and we have worked on a project in Yara with him. And there have been some very good results of studies, pilots, which have been conducted. So, Ravinder, from you, as sustainability becomes central to farming practices, how do you see this Nutri-Smart farming contributing to the longer-term environmental sustainability? Also improving the nutritional outcomes of the crops which we work on. Over to you, Ravinder.
Thank you, Vaishali. First of all, let me admit, I don't like the word sustainability. I mean, such a cliche word, right? Overused. You hear it all the time. Sometimes we even forget the meaning of it. What are we trying to do with sustainability? Honestly, I always had my struggle with this word. So let's try to unpack it. My understanding is we are producing food now, right? And our population will increase. And we want to do it in such a way that in our future generation, our kids, our grandchildren, they also have the access to food, right? That's one part of sustainability. That's how generally it is defined, that how do we do things in a way that so that they stay viable in future as well. But is it enough? That's a question that we should ask ourselves. Sanjeev mentioned about the need for agriculture to grow threefold. Also, we know that there are so many estimates which say we need to grow our agriculture production by 50% by 2050 to feed the growing population. Look at the other worrisome thing. Last 5 decades, what has happened to our food plate? So, few years back, probably when my father used to eat a plate of rice, he used to get X amount of zinc and iron from it. When I eat the same plate of rice, I get 30% less zinc and iron from it, which means to match up to the same amount of nutrition, I have to be eating half a plate extra for, to get the same amount of nutrition. Now, that's what is harming the sustainability of it. Sustainability can't only be defined by the quantum of food you need, because to get the same amount of nutrition, you need more food to be produced, because what we are producing is empty calories. And if I add half a plate to my of rice to my food, which is more or less empty calories, it's what is it going to do to my the problem of diabetes, and the other associated problems which come from the high calorie, high starch foods. So unpacking it further, now this is going to become worse because when we are going to see this temperature rising, it's not only going to affect our production, particularly countries like ours which are sitting in the warmer part of the globe, but also are going to have 3 to 17% drop in zinc, iron, protein level of the key staples like wheat, rice that we eat. So now this is a real threat to the sustainability. So to me, so we can't talk about sustainability if we are starving. So, food is a fundamental block. So if we don't address the issue of nutrition in the food, the talks of sustainability are incomplete. And that's why it's important for us to integrate agriculture, climate, and nutrition. And, we heard some examples from Shiraman Vadvaji about how NRLM is doing it with a set of 100 million women farmer, how they're trying to do it. Samuel Praveen ji gave a good framework about people, policy, platforms, which is needed to scale up these kind of initiatives. So we have got good initial success in running these nutri farming pilots, where we have been able to include nutrition as one of the deliverables in the agriculture. It's not only about yield income. The recent program that he had with Yara, where we have seen that farmers are able to increase their yield by 30%, their income by 40%, while increasing the zinc levels in the same wheat crop by up to 30%. So it is doable. But like they say, pilots never fail, but they rarely scale. I guess the real challenge for all of us is going to be the scaling part of it.
Yeah, thanks, Ravinder. As always, I think very thought-provoking and something which actually needs action on ground. So this is something which everybody is looking forward to within this panel. Everyone is looking for answers on how do we scale things so that we're able to take forward things at ground level. So I'll come back to you with, I have a follow-up question on this, but let me now go to Agatha. She's from Marico, and she will give us some perspective from the consumer side of things. So Agatha, to you, what are the health scenarios among Indians? Because when we hear, we are talking about India, and there are certain dietary patterns of Indians. There have been some traditional diets, and now there are diets which are changing. So, taking into consideration these traditional diets, what do you think is the impact on the Indian health?
Thanks, Vaishali. I'm also not keeping well today. I don't know, there's something in the air. But yeah, I'll try to keep as specific and as crisp as possible. So while we are talking about sustainable diets and all the other stuff and agriculture, uh, I'm glad that I would be alluding to the basic need for all these things. The basic need is what Indians need to take in to survive to a longer time in a healthier way. So they are healthier diets. Of course, we know that there is plethora of data that suboptimal diets, the diets which are not meeting the regular needs of Indians, are the primary cause of all the diseases. And when I say diseases, we are talking about grave diseases. We all know Indians are having the highest possibility of all the possible NCDs, that is the non-communicable diseases. We have the highest number of diabetics in the country now across the world. 101 million diabetics. ICMR INDIAB study recently has quoted that the number of diabetics are 101 million. And there are huge number of pre-diabetics. While 101 seems to be a higher number, but when I say 136 is the other number, which is the number of people quoted as pre-diabetic. And these are the people who have all the chances of getting converted into diabetics. Now, when we see this scenario, we look at what all could be the causal agents of this grave scenario of NCDs among Indians. And of course, we know that some of the modifiable risk factors are there, including our lifestyle, our works culture, but diet appears as the primary of all these causal factors. And the good thing is that it can be modified. While we have been subjected to a change in dietary pattern ever since, like since long, we've been following one set of diet. We changed our diets to give it modernization, westernization, whatever be. Now we are going back to our grandmothers, nuskes and all. Millets were a part of our diet all along the way. But due to modernization, due to some other revolutionary changes, we changed our diet. And now we see that there are two primary staple crops. But that should not be the situation. And probably a very good point that we should be pondering upon, that our agriculture system should not be one or two or three or four plant oriented or crop oriented. As I would be talking more on how a plate should be, our agriculture system, to my opinion, should be a mirror to what we require in a day. So it should not be one crop or two crop. It should be a balance of crops. And if I am to tell you today what an Indian should be taking as per the recent dietary guidelines, which is revised, half of the plate should be coming in from raw vegetables and fruits. So that is what we should be eating in a day. And the quarter which goes to cereal and the other quarter which goes to protein. Protein has become so important in our day's diet that every meal, not only a day, every meal should have some amount of good quality protein, so that the disease structure that I talked about, diabetes, be it cancers or anything, protein has been established to be a very important macronutrient. Now, what are we doing in terms of agriculture to make sure that my crops are actually are having good quality protein? So we've identified what all plant-based good quality proteins are there, and how even with a plant-based diet, an Indian can get all the amino acids which are required to maintain the health and to maintain, or maybe to prevent ourselves from the impeding diseases. So these are some of the points which we should be looking at, not only at one nutrition related angles. No, it's not there, that there is some nutrition related angle silos. And as Samuel sir also alluded, that all the experts and all the stakeholders should act upon in a similar manner. And I would probably go down to a level that nutrition education should not be restricted to closed room discussion, should go down to farmers level. They need to know what are they growing and why are they growing. if they are growing a millet crop, what is it helping them in generating a system? So a diet which is a healthier diet has to be nutritionally secure, of course, culturally secure, and environmentally secure as well. So these are the angles that we should look at. Currently, what India is at, what India requires as a dietary intervention, and how our agriculture can be a primary source of providing Indians that plate that they require, grow exactly the things that are required in the plate. And it's not one or two crops, it's actually a bouquet of several crops. We should provide as much as possible variety to the Indian diet, because Indians, in a way, are very different from others in the world also. They have some genetic, I should not be saying genetic, uh, uh, I'll be finding a better way out. They are different genetically than others. So by a long time, we have this, we are genetically trained to store everything as fat, because Indian body still thinks that this may be the last meal. We've been through so many famines and so many other grave situations that our body still thinks that this may be the last meal. Tomorrow I may not get, during all the other colonization and other stuff. And that's where excess consumption, even if we consume very less amount of food, it is stored as fat. And these things probably thought for future, how do we convert our diets agriculturally and processing ways also, because during processing several nutrients are also getting lost. So or can we just do something even at a growing level, that my crop can withstand the processing changes that happen while milling? For example, if I take, mostly milling takes off all the fiber part. So is there anything, either I change at the processing level or I change at the agriculture level, and I'm able to withstand these micronutrients, these fiber that are getting lost, and ultimately the plate is not getting the most important nutrient that it requires. And for example, in processing, we've seen that while we all are, FBOs are all engaged into getting millets into our product portfolio. And of course, the government of India has helped all the FBOs who are including millets by the PLI system. But what we see is the inclusion of millets, now that we have lost, at least in the urban sector, we've lost the touch to millets. So when we introduce these foods, the first interface that they have is the look of the product. The look of the product is so, I'm really sorry, it does become so unappealing when we introduce a large quantity of millets. They are able to recognize that this product is not the same product that I used to consume. So how do I really convince my consumers in that point that and make the product appealing to them taste-wise and look-wise also? Probably educating consumers, educating my farmers, and of course, a holistic stakeholder discussion. Where do we start catering to this problem? What is the problem? What can be the possible solutions, which have already been given by the experts in their respective domain? And how do I really trace back to the origin of probably a sustainable step? Very sorry to use that word, Ravinder, again, but a step which goes on for a long, in a long way, and which is required for Indians today. So I'll probably be dwelling deeper if required on this.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Agatha. This was, no, the key takeaway from me is that, yeah, we again are something, we are concentrating on suboptimal diets. That's what we follow at the moment. And that's the reason why we are doing such a webinar. Maybe we'll have some points to carry forward and collaborate further on to get certain solutions to this. With this, we move to the last panelist, and Kuchibotla.
You can call me Srini, Vaishali. Yeah.
Okay, hi. Hi, Srini.
Hi, Sanjeev.
So Srini, because you have been working with Deloitte in the Technology and Transformation Division, You're looking at agri and food practices and how you spearhead the overall vertical. So, considering your experience in the agri technology space, how can India better integrate the digital tools to promote both climate smart and nutrition smart practices at farm level, according to you?
Yeah, so Vaishali, I think thank you for the opportunity to speak and here on the subject. Right. So on the smart farming and nutri cereals, right, or millets, I think we need to have digital on two aspects of it, right? When you look at the segment, it's a very niche segment right now, but probably it might evolve as we go forward. But there are the two parts to this ecosystem. One, which is more serving the bottom line, where the deficiencies are there, and second is the rich class, right, or the elite class who look at this as a healthy food segment, right? So these are the two. In the mid part, I think the understanding of what is the nutrition part of it is very limited in terms of the overall scope, right? So if you look at these two parts, one is the bottom line part, BPL part of it, which actually looks at the entire distribution through PDS or through it could be through the ICDS, MDM schemes, right? So those are the schemes that are there where there are a lot of stress on food and nutrition security from the government of India, right? And there are channels where the entire nutri cereals can get moved, right? And there's second in the elite class, which is more on the urban class, where you can actually create a lot of income for the farmer. So that those are the two I think segments, I think, from a demand perspective, right? So what we need to create is basically what is missing, right? From a concept perspective, it is there, but we don't have any data where in those segments of these two, BPL or the urban, what are the hotspots where the deficiencies are, right? And what are so we don't have any data right now. So all NIN of the world, all those researches are there, but from a demand perspective, there's no research which enables us to capture the hotspots of deficiencies, right? Which geographies carry what kind of deficiencies, right? Whether it's iron, whether it's any kind of deficiencies that are there. So that data is missing. Okay, so that is where you can actually position it both from a bottom line and about BPL perspective and also the urban class perspective. So that I think we need to have data around that part. The second, coming back to once you have the demand level data, you can come back and start working with the farmers to actually optimize, right? So what we need to do is the two levers, right? One, the cost of production has to come down. So you have to also look at digital tools to optimize the entire cost of production, because unless and until you optimize it, you can't service the BPL category, right? Because there is a through these schemes, ICDS, MDM, or the PDS, there is a defined pricing. Okay, so government doesn't go beyond that pricing. So the constraint is if you blend this entire whether you introduce millets through this segment or to nutri cereals through this segment, the challenge is how can you afford a pricing which is prefixed by the government, right, in these schemes. So you have to actually source the entire output in that particular category. So how do you again define your entire so use tools, digital tools, to optimize the entire cost of production to see that you are meeting the criteria for the BPL, right, as output per price per kg of whatever output is coming in, right, which can actually then introduce through this channel of BPL or ICDS or MDM. On the other side, you should also look at how do you consolidate. The most important part is how do you consolidate this entire group using digital tools so that you're actually having a economies of scale to say, okay, there is a traceability that is there. Use digital tool to traceability and also the analysis on the nutrition which is there from the output side, and then again hotspots should get created on the digital where the production is happening. If you have both the digital tools looking at hotspots on production with a cost efficient production situation, and you also have hotspots on the demand side, you can actually integrate and create a seamless supply chain. And then you can, from a digital perspective, you can actually create a complete integrated traceable supply chain so that the hotspots on the production side and the hotspots on the consumption side can get linked up. So I think today we are losing the whole game. We have a concept, we have a need, but the traceability platform where everyone will play and we know a seamless digital interface which actually integrates both production and consumption is missing. So I think if the tools are used for that, I think that will be great.
Thanks, Srini. This is something maybe we'll have to again sit with you to understand, because this is a bit more technical, but yeah, makes sense from a theoretical point of view on how do we have these separate sections on BPL, urban, look at these hotspots and also reduce the cost of production, because that's the way forward to have more adoption. So thanks for your comments. So maybe I can very quickly go for a second round, but we'll make it very quick this time because you're already at 12:07. But there are a few more things which need a bit more clarification. So again, going back to Binod. So, how can international forums like yours bridge the gap between research institutions, governments, and private sector? In your earlier comments, you did mention about the government not properly, the institutions not actually properly contributing to what they should have in this Nutri-Smart technology. So, how is that such international forums can bridge this gap? You're on mute, Vinod. You're on mute. Yeah. Now.
Am I audible now?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, Vince, I am much thankful to you for raising this particular question at this opportune time when the whole globe is talking about these things. Last day also they talked about, and the next day also, that is today night, right? Your India IST night, the Prime Minister will also talk about these issues. In fact, this thing is not a small that we are talking about. This is not just farmers' issue and malnutrition issue. This malnutrition issue narrative has been created by the CSOs, by the section of the organization globally, right? They are based out in New York, they are based out in Washington DC, they are supported by CGI institution, World Bank, IMF, and they create such kind of narratives, right? India can grow 590 kind of crops, right? India is not, only scheduled commodities are not grown in India. 590 kind of crop can be produced. India can produce around 6,083 at this moment kind of paddy. Why at all we are just producing the kind of crops which the Western world requires? They need paddy. Fine, perfectly. You pay me for the water, then you talk about the sustainability, right? So 3,000 liters of water, you pay it first, then we will sell our rice to you. I need the price for that. My farmers need a price for that. The global institution like the World Bank and IMF must tune to their policies to create a cooperative-led, conducive, and very agile framework networks, not like this. And they need to create an enable business environment through particular structural reforms, some good regulatory practices, the global one, which should be, the India-centric, which should be farmer-centric, which should be rural India-centric. And that can depend only the economical and technical cooperation and the exchange of experiences and the best practices, what we all are discussing about the sustainability and inclusive growth. So that is required first. The robust and quality infrastructure is already in our country. The farmers are very hardworking. And, in the Vedas also we listen that even the sages need to thank farmers. If the Rishi Muni agar khana nahi khayenge to tafsir nahi kar sakte. So food security कभी भी इंटरनेट के माध्यम से नहीं मिलेगी. फूड सिक्योरिटी कभी भी आपको आईसीटी के माध्यम से नहीं मिलेगी. फूड सिक्योरिटी के लिए आपको फार्मर्स को उसका पैसा देना पड़ेगा. फूड सिक्योरिटी के लिए you need to create that kind of infrastructure for that, and that has already been there. A science technology led innovation, digitization, World Bank based the kind of value chain which is being required. So this reorientation of the global governance policy is the only solution. And that robustness in value chain will only come when the financial sector will behave like that. The private sector will behave like that. The private sector, they get money from the financial sector, the banks, big banks. And that's how the big things, comes in. So it is, again, I am coming back. We need a kind of economic framework which should be politically, that is collectively acceptable. आप एफपीओज बना रहे हैं, एफपीओ किस लिए बनाए? अगर बार में आप उनको फेडरेट करके और आपको सीधी उनके माध्यम से बेचना था तो FPOs are kind of a small collectives, right? Where at the grassroots, the people are doing their own work. The small leaders, the farmers leader are doing the things. Again, you are confederating. In Maharashtra, you will find some confederation. In Madhya Pradesh, you will find some corporate, confederations of these FPOs. So it is the commodity traders in order to commodity. It's an exports-led, export-centric things which are troubling the country. So this is where we need to think it upon. We need to first emphasize on that how this business will grow and how even the best of the best private sector, the startups and the kind of the cooperative economic framework will come and promote the these issues. And largely, I will say that the nutrition is not a big challenge the way the Western media is talking about. The way we have seen during COVID, the pandemic era. No, we are the only country in the world who can feed our people freely. No country in the world can feed their people freely. So we are a very, a white tiger and a robust economic structure we have. Good leadership is at the union government level, and even the things are getting in a different neo-cooperative framework. So the whole democratic global governance is intertwining everything to create that kind of the global target. This is what I want to respond upon your very good question.
Thank you. Thanks.
Vaishali.
Thanks, Binod. Your points are really very insightful and also thought-provoking in a way. So thanks. We'll get back on maybe once we have this webinar, we'll also compile some of the key points which have come out of various contribution from different panelists, and then maybe we'll also find if we can take few actionables from it. So with this, I go to Sanjeev. And Sanjeev, to you, how do you foresee the future adoption of specialty fertilizers, and what role can government policies play in this adoption, according to you?
Thanks, Vaishali. When we look at the specialty fertilizers market in India, we see that there's an average growth of about 5 to 6% annually, which is much better than the 1.5 to 2% growth that you see in the commodity products. And one of the reasons that we feel that this growth is going to be very sustainable is that the Indian farmer is actually a business person. We need to treat the Indian farmer as a business person instead of just an agriculture or as we used to do earlier. He or she takes informed business and they are beginning to see that specialty fertilizers have better nutrient use efficiency and they get better returns from applying such new that is definitely going to be continue to grow in the current enabler and has to, for example, I would say that in India, fertilizers are regulated by what is known as the fertilizer control order. It takes all about 3.5 to 4 years to register a new product. So if you want to improve the availability of new products to the Indian farmer, you need to follow what is happening in the European Union and the US markets, where you have fertilizers that are allowed to come in, which meet the basic parameters laid out by the governments or local authorities, where there is a lower bar for nutrient content and a very important barrier on the heavy metals that can be used or can be part of the fertilizer system. And just have general specification of fertilizer to come in so that the farmers get access to the innovative fertilizer at the same time as the peers in the global markets get. And the second part is on the collaboration side. I think if we really want to grow the innovative fertilizer, even let's say when we look at what the Harvest Plus is doing, which is a fantastic job, Nutri-Smart concepts are there. Why cannot we have, as organizations, private players, have a public private partnership with KVKs, for example, in which Harvest Plus is one part of it, and then we could, as Yara or someone else who is interested in it, become part of that system to deliver the knowledge to the farmers along with innovative solutions. Let's not forget KVKs. We have almost 750 KVKs in India. which has gives us a very strong asset base of almost 5 to 10 acres of land, which is there where demonstrations can be done. The farmers can get access to the latest technologies on seed, on fertilizers, on fertigation, and so on and so forth. And that will really help in scaling up the knowledge and also improve the quality of the food that we are using or in eating. And in this organization like Harvest Plus should be an integral part, and other players in the input sector could become part of the ecosystem around that. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Sanjeev. And taking forward Sanjeev's points on public-private partnership, Ravinder, to you, what role, according to you, public-private partnerships play in this scaling up this initiative? Particularly if you are looking at countries like India, the developing economies, where the nutrition and sustainability are at a point where there is a trade-off. So what is your point here?
Thanks, Vaishali. Like I said, scaling is the most difficult part, right? Getting it in a pilot is easy, but then when you have to take it to a large chunk of people, that's where the real challenges start. I guess three things. Srini mentioned a very good point about we need to make the whole process more data-driven, which will help us to realize where does the deficiencies exist. We have seen countries have been in denial about the nutrition status, etc., and all that. Maybe it's on an overall basis, it might not be making sense, but we clearly know there are areas where these nutrition deficiencies exist. And the more important thing is to know what are the deficiencies and then how agriculture can be used to address those deficiencies. So it has to start with, like Srini mentioned, mapping of these hubs, both on the deficiency side as well as on the production side, and connecting that. Second important thing is, I guess that's where all of us need to change is, I always say people tend to fall in love with their own ideas and innovations, right? And they think that's a complete solution. It'll be very foolish on our part to assume that biofortification alone can solve the problems of the world. Probably it has to work with something which Yara is doing on soil health. It has to work with what Marico is doing on the food side. So farmer doesn't care about our innovation. All he cares about is the solution to his problem. And if we cannot, join hands and club our innovations or bundle our innovations to create a solution, I think we will never have, quote unquote, the sustainable answer to our questions. And lastly, I think the realization that we all should live with is that scaling is not a sprint, it's not a marathon, it's a relay race, and so it involves multiple stakeholders. Someone does the innovation, someone like Harvest Plus, CGIR does some innovation. It has to hand over at some point to either to the government or to the private sector for taking it. If they keep it too close to their chest for quite some time, they are going to lose the impact. So, to Indian context, I have this funny model, I call it the Papad model of collaboration, which is public, private, development sector. These three have to come together, where public role is, like Vinod mentioned, is to look at the policy governance frameworks at a global level, also to ensure that how does it get integrated into the ongoing policy initiatives, for example, public distribution, midday meal programs, etc., and all that. Private sector has to bring the speed that they're really good at. They mean business, they know how to take things forward. And I guess development sector's role is to kind of ensure that these innovations are scaled equitably. They are not only for urban folks, but who need it the most to the vulnerable community. So yeah, so that's what my 2 cents on the scaling.
Yeah. Thanks, Ravinder. And though we are getting questions, some live questions, but I think we've reached our time limit. So what we'll do is we'll circulate these questions among all the speakers, get the answers, and maybe share it later on with the list of people who had joined. So with this, maybe I should bring the session to a close. Thank you so much to all our distinguished panelists for sharing their invaluable insights today. and your expertise has truly illuminated the vital role of technology, innovations, and sustainable practices in enhancing our agriculture productivity, while we are also looking at our natural resources, because they are also that important. So I'm refraining from using sustainability, Ravinder. So I am just struggling to form my sentences. But I also want to extend my gratitude to everyone who has joined us today online. And we could see a lot of engagement in terms of questions which have come in, and we'll definitely get back to you on this. And as we move forward, it's essential that we continue having these conversations and also apply what we have learned to create a sustainable future for agriculture. We will continue our discussions further, but for now, on behalf of the entire team, I would like to thank you all again. And we look forward to seeing a positive impact of the work which we are doing and the collaborations in future. Just officially closing today's session. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Vaishali. Thanks to all
Thanks.
teams, Sanjeev ji and Ravinder ji, everyone.
Thank you, Vinod, for joining us so late. Thank you very much. Really
Bye-bye.
appreciate it.
Bye. Bye. Take care.